in this set of notes, they say to solve the quadratic equation. So we're going to do that by factoring. And then they want us to sketch a graph of what we think it might look like. So we did one example of this on our last set of notes. Today we'll continue with that. Okay, so first equation, we have s squared equals 18s minus 81. Well, remember, if we're going to factor that, we need everything to be on one side of the equal sign, right? So how am I going to fix this? What should I move? Huh? Okay, how would I move the s squared to the other side? Okay. Is there anything on the other side like s squared? No, no like terms. Okay. So now I have 0 on this side equals negative s squared plus 18s minus 81. Okay? Now, we have everything on one side of the equal sign. We can go ahead and factor. What do we look for first? GCF. What am I going to need to take out here? A negative. Very good. So I'm going to take a negative 1 out of this side of my equation. Well, if I take a negative 1 out of negative s squared, what's it going to become? Very good. When you divide a negative by a negative, it becomes a positive. All right? Then we have a positive 18s that I'm taking a negative 1 out of. What's it going to become? Very good. And then lastly, negative 81 divided by negative 1 becomes good. All right, so we have our GCF taken out. Now I look at my numbers so that I can identify my sum and my product. What's my sum this time? Nice. And what's my product? Okay. So I need something that will multiply to give me a positive 81, but will add to give me negative 18. Perfect. So he said a negative times a negative would give me a positive 81, but negative 9 plus negative 9 does give me negative 18. Okay, so now I write my two parentheses. So I've got s minus 9 and s minus 9. Okay? So once I have the two parentheses, what am I supposed to do with them? How do I solve them? Very good, very good. Remember, we take what's inside of the parentheses, s minus 9, and set it equal to 0. And we do that for both pieces. Okay? And then our last step is to solve. So how would I get s by itself? Good. And what is 0 plus 9? Good. So s equals 9. Okay? What about for that other parenthesis? Exact same. So again, we get s equals 9. All right. So that means we have a root or a solution or an x-intercept at 9. So I come over here. This is an x-intercept. It's where it touches the x-axis, this line here. And I give myself a 0 at 9. Do we have any others? No, that's the only one we came up with. And what does a parabola look like? A U, right? It makes this U shape. Okay? It goes down and comes back up, but apparently only touches this line one time, right? So that must mean that this is the very bottom of the U, right? Because it didn't touch the x-axis again. All right. Let's look at another one. All right, number 2. find the roots of the equation 3r squared minus 12 equals 0. So are we going to have to move anything this time? Nope, already said equal to 0. So we're going to go ahead and factor. What do I look for first? Good. And what is our GCF?
3.
Nice. So I'm going to take out a 3. If I take 3 out of 3r squared, what's left? Nice. And if I divide negative 12 by 3, what's left? Very good. All right, so we took out our GCF. Now we look for our sum and our product. The sum's supposed to be in the middle. Do we have one in the middle? So it must be very good. And then my product is, so it's got to multiply to give me negative 4 and add to give me 0. Nice. So negative 2 times positive 2 is negative 4, and negative 2 plus 2 gives us 0. All right, so now I come back over here and write my factors. So we have our GCF in front, and then I have r minus 2 and r plus 2. Okay, and then what am I supposed to do with all of my factors? Very good. So I'll have that the 3 is equal to 0, that r minus 2 equals 0, and r plus 2 equals 0. Well, does 3 actually equal 0? No, so we don't want that one. Okay. And r minus 2 equals 0. How am I going to solve that? Good. So r equals 2. Okay, what about on this next one? Subtract. Very good. So yes, we do end up with r equals negative 2. So how many answers did we get this time? 2 different answers. Okay, so I need to come over here and graph those. All right, so I have one at negative 2 and one at positive 2. And what did we say that this looks like? A U, and it has to go through both of those points, right? So you just need to make sure that your parabola hits both of the points that we just drew. So something like that. All right, number 3. Okay, on this one, they said that if f of x is equal to negative 2x plus 5 times x plus 7, they want us to find the zeros and sketch the graph. Okay, so first we would need everything on one side of the equal sign. Did they have that already? Is everything on one side of the equal sign? Yeah, okay, so they already have that part taken care of for us. Okay. So they have 0 equals negative 2x plus 5 times x plus 7. Okay? Well, the next thing we would need to do would be to factor it, right? Okay? But they also already did that, right? They already broke it into the parentheses for us. So once it's factored, then what are we supposed to do? Put everything equal to 0. Very good. So I have this negative out in front. Remember, that's like having a negative 1. So I have negative 1 equals 0. And then I have 2x plus 5 equals 0. And then I have x plus 7 equals 0. All right, well, does negative 1 actually equal 0? So we don't want this solution. Okay, on the next one, what am I going to do to solve there? Good. So then 2x equals negative 5. Then what? Nice. Can I actually divide negative 5 by 2 and get a whole number? No. So I'm going to leave it as negative 5 over 2. Or if you want, you could convert that into a decimal, which would be about negative 2.5, right? So, or negative 2.5. And you can put that in your calculator to get that. Okay? And then for x plus 7, what do I need to do on this one? Good. So in here, we're going to end up with x equals, very good. All right, so we got two answers again. One at -7 and one at -2.5. Okay? All right. So the deal here is we know it makes a U shape. However, they had this negative in front that was only with the first parenthesis, not the whole thing, right? If you have a negative in front, it flips your graph, right? Just like if you have a positive slope, then you know that your line is going to slant this way. But if you have a negative slope, you know it flips it the other direction, right? Okay, well, a positive parabola looks like this. A negative in front flips it upside down. Okay? So because this one had a negative, it still makes that U shape. However, the U is now upside down. So when I make my parabola, the top is up here. Looks something like this. Okay? So whenever they ask you to give them a sketch, they want you to find the zeros and then draw something like this. Okay? All right. Last few here, all we're doing on these ones is solving. So we just factor and we don't have to graph. All right, so on number 4, are all the x's on the same side? Yeah, okay, so we're good there. So now I need to factor it. We've got 24x squared minus 8x equals 0. Okay, so what's my GCF? 24 goes into 8. 8 what?
8x.
8x, very good. So my GCF is 8x. Okay, if I divide 24x squared by 8x, what's going to be left? Next. And if I divide negative 8x by 8x, what's left? -1, very good. Equals 0. So do I have any more squares? Any x squareds left? No, so I'm done with the factoring. So now I'm just going to take my pieces and set them equal to 0. So I'll have 8x equals 0 and 3x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, well, how am I going to get x by itself with 8x equals 0? Right, very good. And what is 0 divided by 8?
0.
Good. Okay, and then I have another answer over here. What do I do with that 3x minus 1? Add 1. So 3x equals 1, and then what? Divide. And can I actually divide 1 by 3 and get a whole number? No, so we're just going to leave it as x equals 1/3. And there's my two solutions. Okay, number 5 says, what is the solution set for this equation? 156 equals -2n squared minus 38n. Okay, well, what should we do first?
Sure, 156 on one side.
Okay, got to put everything on one side. Very good. Is there anything like the 156 on the other side? No. So I've just got 0 equals -2n squared minus 38n minus 156. All right. So now what do I look for? Very good. And what's my GCF going to be here?
2.
Very good. Okay, so if I take negative 2 out of negative 2n squared, what are we left with? Nice. And if I divide negative 38n by negative 2, what are we left with? Good. And if I divide negative 156 by negative 2, what am I left with? Nice. So now we have our GCF taken out. We look for our sum and product. What's our sum? Good. And what's our product? Very good. Okay, so now I've got to find some numbers that are going to multiply to give me 78 and add to give me 19. Okay, so 78 is a pretty big number. And it's an even number, right? Okay, so what are some even numbers that we know will go into 78? I'm checking our calculator. 2. 2 times what gives me 78? Okay. But is 39 and 2 going to give us 19?
No.
Okay, so let's try the next even number. What would be the next even number? Does 4 go into 78? How many times? Okay, and will those two numbers give me 19?
13 and 6.
The next even number would be 6. And like he said, 6 times 13 would give us 78, and 6 plus 13 is 19. So we got negative 2 in front, and then in my parentheses I'll have n plus 6, and in the other one n plus 13. All right, and then what do I do with those parentheses? Very good. So I got negative 2 equals 0, n plus 6 equals 0, and n plus 13 equals 0. Well, does negative 2 actually equal 0? Okay, so we don't want that one. Can we solve for n on the second one? By doing what? Good, and we'll end up with n is equal to, very good. And then on the last one, what would we do? So we end up with n equals, very good. All right, the last one. Okay, this one says that the area of a rectangular room is given by the equation L squared minus 5L equals 66, where L is the length of the room. Find the length. So again, we are just solving. I'm going to solve for L. Okay, so what would I need to do first with my equation? Good. So is there anything like 66 on the other side? No, so we're just going to have to tag it on the end. So we'll have L squared minus 5L minus 66 equals 0. Okay? Then what are we going to look for? Does this one have a GCF? No, no number. Okay. So then what's my sum? Good. And what's my product? Alright, so can we think of anything that multiplies to give us negative 66, adds to give us negative 5? Very good. So negative 11 times 6 is negative 66, and negative 11 plus 6 is negative 5. So in my parentheses, I now have L minus 11 and L plus 6. Okay, and then what am I going to do with each one of those factors? Nice. So L minus 11 equals 0, and L plus 6 equals 0. All right, then what? Add, very good. So I end up with L equals 11, and then And we end up with L equals, very good. Okay, so they did ask us to find the length, which is different from the other problems because they just wanted you to solve for the variables, right? Okay, the length of a rectangle. Can you have two different lengths? Now we have a length and we have a width, right? But the lengths are the same and the widths are the same. So one of these cannot be the length. Which one would we not use? The negative, right? Because we don't ever have something that's negative 6 feet long. So, because length is not